Good morning, televiewers. You're on to the second edition of your favorite bilingual program dedicated to the review of striking newspapers on My Media Prime television. This morning, as usual, we focus on striking headlines that the English and French newspapers got for us this morning. We always have with us guest in the studio to dig several layers beneath some of those striking headlines with us. And today we are receiving former detainee of political detainee of MRC political party, Sir Mutaga Sivanus, otherwise now known as Evangelist Mutaga Sivanus Tifu, who is already in the studio with us, as you'll be discovering in course of the program. Odriza Zag is already around as usual. I will now find out what the French newspapers have for its readers or their readers this morning. Bonjour Audrey.
Bonjour Lasha Kingsley, bonjour fidèles téléspectateurs. Et tout de suite, la une de Émergence par lequel nous débutons ce matin parle de la remontée des cas de contamination au coronavirus au Cameroun. En effet, apprend-on dans le journal le samedi 23 janvier 2021, le ministre de la Santé publique, le docteur Manaouda Malachi, s'est dit inquiète de cette montée fulgurante du nombre de décès sur le triangle national et a invité à nouveau au respect des mesures édictées par le gouvernement et l'Organisation mondiale de la santé. Le journal de Aman Mana, Le Jour, pour sa part, revient sur l'affaire Afou-Niville, Aza Levis et Fomoussou qui purgent une peine de 10 ans de prison pour avoir fait une plaisanterie sur Boko Haram. Pour rappel, en décembre 2014, Fomoussou Aïvo recevait d'un ami un SMS disant Boko Haram recrute des jeunes à partir de 14 ans, conditions de recrutement 4 matières au GC, y compris la religion. Le message de son ami était destiné à souligner la difficulté à trouver un bon travail dans son diplôme et laisser entendre sur le ton de la plaisanterie qui compris le groupe armé Boko Haram n'embauche pas si l'on n'avait pas réussi ses examens. Fomousso Aïvo a transféré ce message à Afou Niville Fort qui l'a alors envoyé à Aza Levis Gob. Un de leurs enseignants a vu ce SMS malheureusement après avoir confisqué le téléphone et l'a montré à la police. Fomousso Aïvo et ses amis avaient tous les trois été arrêtés et transférés à la prison centrale de Yaoundé Kondengui le 14 janvier 2015 et ils sont maintenus. Le jour où nous apprend donc que les jeunes élèves sont toujours en attente du procès à la Cour suprême. C'est dans la page 3 du journal Le Jour que vous retrouverez plus sur cette information. Le même journal exprime son ras-le-bol par rapport à la guerre dans le nord-ouest et le sud-ouest. On poursuit avec le Messager qui parle de la santé et de la sécurité au travail. Notre confrère sur ce sujet propose une enquête exclusive sur l'amoncellement. Alors l'amoncellement des décès liés à des accidents de travail pourtant évitables. Dans le même dossier, la crise sociale au sein du groupe franco-britannique Perenco. Terminons donc l'exercice de ce jour avec le quotidien L'économie qui, dans sa publication de ce matin, donne des causes du report de Promote qui normalement devait se tenir au mois d'avril prochain. Le même journal informe également que les secrétaires généraux des conseillers régionaux sont désormais connus. Voilà, mesdames, messieurs, pour les tabloïds en langue française. Place aux tabloïds en langue anglaise avec toi, Lasha Kingsley.
Merci, Audrey Zaxa. Let's kickstart this morning with the Loon English Daily, the Guardian Post newspaper, which revisits the outing of some regime or top regime apologists on national television. The paper writes that taking Cameroonians for granted, government dodges implementation of Article 66 on declaration of assets and property in Cameroon. According to the paper, some regime apologists went on national television boasting of the successful and full implementation of the 1996 Constitution. That was during the celebration of the 25th anniversary of the 1996 Constitution of Cameroon. You can get details of that story on page 3 of this edition of the Guardian Post newspaper. The Guardian Post also talked about the strike action that has been called by CDC workers union leaders According to the paper, despite announced tripartite meeting, CDC workers, union leaders insist planned strike must go on. But administration or management claims workers are not in support of the industrial action called by union leaders. On to the Horizon newspaper. The Horizon revisits the sad incidents which happened over the weekend in the northwest region of Cameroon. We are talking about two separate fire incidents that ravaged part of or dormitories at PSS Mancon in the northwest region of Cameroon. The paper says, en route to rescue PSS Mancon, firefighters truck attacked by suspected separatists as they headed to put off the flames, which engulfed girls' dormitories at that institution in the northwest region of Cameroon. An Anglophone detainee between life and death after multiple stabs in Kondengui prison. We are told by the Horizon newspaper the Anglophone detainee was stabbed multiple times by other inmates at the Kondengui maximum security prison in Yaoundé. Is now battling with his life between life and death in a medical facility in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. SDO in war of words with outspoken Bamenju chief. We are told that the senior divisional officer for Upper Plateau Division in the West region of Cameroon issued threats to paramount ruler of Bamenju people in the West region. Sokoju, the outspoken or the critic of the regime, is said to have been issued a letter or a document warning him to stay off his multiple outings on social media and traditional media. According to the release from the SDO, Sokoju is inciting the population to riot against the state of Cameroon. And on his part, Sokoju has said he has even received bigger threats from his superiors. So what the senior divisional officer has issued is a non-event according to him. Let's leave the Horizon newspaper. We're ending with the National Bilingual Daily Cameroon Tribune, which of course this day took interest in the decree signed yesterday by the President of the Republic of Cameroon, Paul Biya, appointing Secretary Generals at regional councils across the 10 regions of Cameroon. The decree yesterday appointed these Secretary Generals who will be running the affairs of the councils as Secretary Generals, according to the National Bilingual Daily Cameroon Tribune. Talking about power supply in Cameroon, the National Bilingual Daily Cameroon Tribune says Turkish company has proposed low-cost electricity to the Cameroonian government. Yesterday, officials of that company met with Prime Minister Chief Dr. Joseph Diongute, and they presented their plan to the Prime Minister. Of course, they are requesting that the Prime Minister gives them that's authorization to operate from the Douala Autonomous port. We are back in the studio to continue digging several layers beneath some of the striking headlines we got for the papers today. Audrey Zagzag, I would like us to begin with the paper talking about these children who have spent up to 7 years in prison, yeah. And they are waiting their trial at the level of, or appeal at the level of the Supreme Court, filed in by their lawyer. They are being implicated in issues relating to terrorism in the country. Sir Mutaga Sivanus, good morning once again, and you're welcome to the program.
Good morning, Mr. Lasha Kingsley. Good morning to Audrey Zaza. Good morning to all the televiewers of My Major Prime TV. It's a pleasure always appearing here, especially to talk on very important, striking issues that concern our country, Cameroon.
Okay, a teacher who got hold of the mobile phone of his students and presented to the police. Meanwhile, these children were just merely joking. They were just joking over the message regarding concerning Boko Haram
and employment in Cameroon.
And employment in Cameroon. What do you make of this long-awaiting trial by, we call they are minors? At that time of their arrest and detention, they were minors. What do you make of this? They have spent close to 7 years in prison.
Lasha Kingsley, I want to say that we are in a country in which the government in place or maybe the judicial system keeps on toying with the destinies of Cameroonians, because it's unheard of that minors will be arrested and dumped in prison, and only after 7 years before they are taken several layers into what were the allegations that led them into prison. You remember we said one time that prison in Cameroon is used as a means of settling scores. Maybe you have scores with somebody and then you think that that person is a menace between you and the person, and the only way to clear the person from your way is to dump him in prison. I don't really know the antecedents between the teacher in question and the student, because sometimes in the classroom...
Was it really right for the teacher to have done what he did? Why did he probably not call the children and caution them against such dissemination of information or what they were doing? Was it right to take the phone to the police?
I think in the school milieu there are rules and regulations. There are mechanisms in which the school has always put in place in order to deal with issues that concern students' life. So what I want to say is that most often in classrooms you will find things that happen between students and teachers. Maybe they are fighting over a girlfriend and all the like, or maybe there are several things that happen, and then finally you see that in the guise of maybe proving to the student that we are the ones that have power over you, and an opportunity like that one presents itself, you see the teacher just rush the students to the police post, and maybe sometimes information is being amplified. Like I told you, the police departments of our nation, they need to be, let me say, experts in carrying out investigations, because most often you see the rush over investigations, things are not totally...
So if a phone call or orders came from above, that they should use those students to set examples.
That is exactly why I said that it has to do with settling of scores. The regime in place, our government, might be confused on how to handle certain major crises like the Boko Haram insurgents in the northern regions of Cameroon.
Of course, the law on terrorism, the 2014 law on terrorism, probably that's what they are using to nail down these students. We equally had Abu Bala, who reacted today, calling on the government to release these children.
Normally, they're supposed to release these students because I want to say they are minors. There is supposed to be a reformatory center where those minors are placed there. Minors are not supposed to be in prison. There's supposed to be a reformatory center where minors are kept there. They teach them on how to actively involve in certain social issues that are concerning the community. Because they took it could be just a way of clowning, but they didn't know the real implications of what was at hand.
Exactly, but is it not equally time for us to question the good use, the use of social media, because they were actually joking via WhatsApp, what really happened, or I mean, why would they do such jokes using such a platform? We've seen journalists who were arrested after they were being sent some images, some images from the northwest or the southwest. They thought maybe they were,
sympathizing with the terrorists.
Audrey, let me say this. It has to do with the culture of education in our country, because when you say the social media, who are those who open Cameroonians to social media? It is the government in place. The internet is a useful tool, but Cameroonians have not been well schooled on how to use the social media. I think we are talking of minors in this particular case. I said minors. They might not know the implications of the social media. So as they have been arrested, they are placed in prison. It's not the right place for minors. They were supposed to be placed maybe in a reformatory center where they have been taught on how to use the social media. Now let's come to the use of social media by adults. I want to think that no matter the grievances we may have, it is not right for us to use the social media to instrumentalize or maybe to propagate false information that may constitute a menace to the stability of our nation. So why making use of the social media that is a useful tool, especially in our present age? I want to think that Cameroonians must exercise a high degree of maturity. Because
but these are minors. We are talking about minors.
Yes, Audrey just mentioned journalists that were arrested in connection with propagation of information that has to do with the Anglophone crisis. But I want to tell that sometimes too, it is as a result of a crackdown policy by the government. to completely conceal or hide exactly what is happening.
But it's not the government that votes the law.
Those laws,
the bills that comes to Parliament.
Yes, Mr. Elisha Kingsley, you know the way our
the 2014 anti-terrorism law that was voted by our Parliament. What were they doing at the Glass House?
Mr. Elisha
such law had to be voted.
Mr. Elisha Kingsley, you know our Parliament. Our Parliament is an obese Parliament with the CPDM parliamentarians, and those parliamentarians of the CPDM, they don't have any genuine project that is of their own. They don't sit down to conceive any project. I want to be very clear. Most often the project is being drafted by the government and only bring to them, it is brought to them for them to confirm it or maybe to legitimize it.
But nobody has stopped them from coming out with private member bills.
Yes.
Or even stopping those bills.
When there is no total separation of power between the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary, you find that the central power, which is the executive, will also have a heavy hand, will always dictate to the other arms of government. They can never have a free will to work, because most often, largely, their operations will depend on the influence of the executive. So when there will be total separation of powers in our country, I want to tell that the laws that will be voted in the parliament will be laws that are clean and fair laws for the nation. As for this moment, I want to tell that the terrorism law of 2014 is so biased. It only helps to limit public liberties in order to allow the system in place to continue to pound, to manipulate over the people. Because,
okay.
Mr. Elisha, beg your pardon.
Yes. 30 seconds.
Yes, the information from the journalists, I want to tell you, it could have traces of truth. You know, the Bible says, you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free. Most often, the regime in place will want to hide information, especially which is truth.
No, but there are certain information that they are not good. The time that you have to publish them, you have to evaluate the consequences.
Mr. Elisha,
on the life of
the consequences on the life of a nation. Let me tell you that Cameroonians are dying in the northwest and southwest region. You wouldn't tell a journalist not to expose the evil and call for general sympathy on what has to be done in order to avoid it happening.
Mais en général, quand même, il faut le dire, il y a beaucoup d'informations erronées qui circulent un peu de partout. Du coup, les Camerounais ne savent plus ce qui est vrai, ce qui est faux.
Oui, Audrey Zaza, je dis ceci. C'est ça que nous décrions tout. Je pense que il est temps à ce que les adultes qui sont au centre de la propagation de fausses nouvelles soient interpellés. On les interpelle à exercer une maîtrise. Parce que le pays est à un niveau où c'est un peu fragile. Parce qu'il y a la crise sécuritaire qui est dans le Nozo, qui est au Grand Nord, à cause de Boko Haram. Bon, s'il y en a des Camerounais qui profitent de ça pour encore empirer la situation dans notre pays, je pense que le droit, la loi, peuvent les interpeller à tout moment et ils soient punis. Moi, je ne suis pas en faveur de ceux qui sont à la propagation de fausses nouvelles. Et surtout, je pense que si on est adulte, on doit mesurer les conséquences de la propagation de certaines nouvelles, surtout dans les réseaux sociaux où c'est difficile d'avoir la maîtrise.
Okay, let's take Cameroon Tribune this time around. Cameroon Tribune focuses on the appointment of Secretary Generals at the regional councils in Cameroon. Yesterday, President Biya signed a decree as relayed by Cameroon Tribune appointing these Secretary Generals. What do you make of the appointment? Since the northwest and southwest regions of the country already had these Secretary Generals, and these other two that are coming, what would be their function?
I think the governor has a Secretary General. You have the Secretary General of the Regional Council and all the like. It's not a surprise to me because decentralization is not federalism. The context of Cameroon, it is transferring a certain portion of power to the local communities. So, meaning that.
But we had Anglophone, Professor Anglophone, the second. He said that the people should not expect anything from Yaoundé again during his speech. That's what he said.
That is exactly why I said.
They should not expect anything from Yaoundé.
I said decentralization in the Cameroonian context. It's not as it's found elsewhere, like it is in, I think, Kenya and other, like if you want to go to Kenya, how it's happening. In Cameroon, the kind of decentralization that we see in place, I have the impression that it is just a kind of a window dressing. They just want to deceive the Anglophones, or maybe because, you know, the law of 1996 was voted, which spoke of decentralization. It took so many years. It was a result of...
But the special status has come now to add...
The special status has come.
Which has been accomplished.
Yes,
already.
Mr. Lasha, let's come back to what we're talking about, the secretaries, the secretaries general. Those
yes.
secretaries general are appointed by the President of the Republic.
But the bone of contention, what is disturbing most Cameroonians is that the Northwest and Southwest have certain specificities, and now they already had the Secretary General. Why appoint another secretary, two other Secretary Generals who come add to what the Northwest and Southwest already had?
Mr. Lasha,
as per the special status and whatever. Of
the fact that the system in place, I don't want to be calling names and other like, they are regretting, or even if they're regretting, they still want to have a hold, total control of the two regions.
No, but the governor is already there to supervise, because the governor is
there to supervise. I want to say
the regional council.
Yes, I want to say it's as a result because they want to still have a hold, a grip of the two regions. The governor is there, but he might not have total influence on the regional body, which is the regional council. If he has to interfere directly, it will be too glaring. People will think that like this, it's violation of the statutes which is in place. So you need somebody that has to come in disguise, so that at every time he can easily intervene without any popular criticism. Because I don't see the reason why there would be the appointment of the secretary by the President of the Republic, whereas the Northwest and Southwest region have special status. The House of the Commons, the House of Chiefs, the House of that, those are houses that were supposed to sit down and then decide on who has to be their secretary, and then they only refer to the state so that it could go through voting. Since those people need people that have legitimacy, because the problem of the Northwest and Southwest region has always been an issue of legitimacy. Most often, the elites who are appointed by the President of the Republic, maybe to posts of responsibility, do not have the grassroots support. So these people need people that have their support. I think it were better for the President of the Republic.
So in essence, what are you saying?
In essence, I'm saying
30 seconds.
In essence, I'm saying that these secretaries that have been appointed by the President of the Republic were infringed the participative democracy which decentralization want to bring in the two Anglophone regions.
So what are you proposing?
I am proposing that they would have allowed the regional body to elect their secretary, which the government in place would have only to endorse, not that the government in place has to appoint a secretary for them.
Okay, thank you very much, Sir Mutaga Sivanus Tifu, or Evangelist Tifu Mutaga Sivanus, for coming.
The name is Evangelist Sir Mutaga Sivanus Tifu.
Okay, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and I want to plead with the televiewers of this channel to keep scotching to it, because I'm sure you have a lot to do.
Okay, thank you.
Merci.
We appreciate.
C'est sous ces paroles que nous terminons avec cette édition de ce jour. Restez scotchés pour plus sur My Media Prime Television.
Thank you for watching, televiewers. The production this morning was coordinated by Tebong Christian, who is always with us. And for presentation, we've been Audrey Zaxa and myself, Lasha Kingsley. Bye-bye. Tomorrow is another day.